The human's fist shattered the Komar ambassador's jaw, spraying fluorescent blood across the pristine Galactic Council chamber. Ambassador Laros collapsed, choking on fragments of shattered teeth, as the emergency alarms began to blare. The human stood over Laros's crumpled form, knuckles dripping with alien blood. "This is only the beginning," the man growled, as a dozen more humans in battle armor stormed into the chamber. Pulse rifles aimed at the cowering council members. "Did you really think you could enslave and exploit us without consequences?" The council members stared in shocked disbelief at the savage primitives who dared to challenge their power. After all, in their last report, these humans had barely mastered fire and stone tools. Yet now their colonies burned under a coordinated human assault, and their invincible defenses crumbled against the humans' asymmetric tactics and sheer ruthless determination. As the alarm screeched and muzzle flashes lit up the chamber, an emergency holo transmission cut through the chaos. On Zephyrus Prime, the Komar's most valuable and vulnerable colony, a man in blood-stained armor stood before the ruins of the colony's vital terraforming nexus, now belching flames and smoke. "I am Commander Ethan Jones of the Human Liberation Front," the scarred soldier declared, his voice hard as steel. "For too long, your council has brutalized our settlements and crushed our people beneath your claws to steal our resources and souls. But no longer." Jones raised his fist before the burning wreckage, his words booming through the council chamber. "This is only the first blow for our freedom. Zephyrus Prime belongs to humanity now, and we will not stop until every world, every star is free from your tyranny. You wanted our obedience. Instead, you will face our wrath. Humanity will not kneel before you ever again." The holo faded out, leaving only the moans of the wounded Komar and the grim faces of the armed humans surrounding the council. In that moment, the galaxy shifted on its axis. The Komar realized, far too late, that they had sown the seeds of their own destruction. Humanity would fight for their destiny among the stars, and they would win or die trying. As the smoke cleared from the smoldering ruins of the Zephyrus Prime terraforming nexus, a sleek Komar warship pierced the ashen clouds, descending on the ravaged colony like a steel raptor. Commander Zorn stood on the bridge, his cold eyes scanning the destruction below with a mix of disdain and drive. He had crushed countless uprisings before, and these primitive humans would be no different. "Deploy the ground forces," Zorn ordered, his voice sharp as a blade. "I want those rebels found and eliminated. No mercy." On the surface, Ethan Jones crouched behind a twisted slab of metal, pulse rifle clutched tight as the whine of Komar dropships filled the air. He turned to his battered fighters, their faces grim with willpower. "Fall back to the rendezvous point," he commanded. "We can't win this head-on. Time to make use of the terrain." As the humans melted into the rugged wilderness, Zorn's task force swept through the ruined colony, their advanced weapons cutting down any resistance with brutal efficiency. But Ethan and his guerrillas were ghosts, striking from the shadows before vanishing into the maze of canyons and forests. Days turned to weeks as the battle raged across Zephyrus Prime. The Komar's superior firepower was relentless, but the humans' tenacity and knowledge of the land kept them one step ahead. Then, as Ethan scouted a narrow ravine, he encountered an unexpected sight, a group of alien figures, clad in hand-woven cloaks and carrying primitive weapons. The leader, a fierce female with eyes like smoldering coals, stepped forward. "I am Raxia of the Zephyrian people. We have watched you fight the sky demons." Ethan lowered his rifle warily. "The Komar enslaved our people too. Looks like we share a common enemy." Raxia nodded, a spark of recognition in her gaze. "The Komar have oppressed us for generations. We rebelled once, long ago, but they crushed us without mercy. But perhaps, with your people's strength, we may have a chance." In the Komar Command Center, Commander Zorn smacked his fist on the holotable as another ambush was reported. These humans were like vermin, scurrying in the shadows, always out of reach. But he would burn them out, even if it meant razing every inch of this wretched planet. "Target the native settlements," Zorn snarled to his lieutenants. "Teach these savages the price of aiding the enemy." As smoke rose from the smoldering Zephyrian villages, Ethan and Raxia stood atop a windswept ridge, watching the distant flames. Raxia's eyes smoldered with ancient fury, her hand tight on her blade. "The Komar only sow seeds of hatred with their cruelty," she said, her voice hard as stone. "More will flock to our cause now." Ethan nodded grimly. "And we'll be ready for them. I've got a plan to hit the Komar where it really hurts." Under the cover of night, the human and Zephyrian strike team moved like shadows, infiltrating the heavily guarded Komar supply depot. As dawn broke, the depot erupted in flames, the rebels vanishing into the wilderness, leaving only destruction in their wake. In the Galactic Council chamber, Ambassador Laros watched the reports from Zephyrus Prime with growing unease. The rebellion was gaining ground, despite the Komar's overwhelming might, and whispers of unrest were spreading to other, subjugated worlds. The humans' defiance had lit a spark, and the winds of change were beginning to howl. On Zephyrus Prime, Ethan and Raxia crouched over a makeshift holotable, the blue glow illuminating their battle-worn faces. Before them was a schematic of the Komar Command Center, the heart of their occupation. "This is it," Ethan said, his voice heavy with the weight of the moment. "We cut off the head, and the body will fall." Raxia nodded, her eyes alight with the fire of rebellion. "For the freedom of Zephyrus, for the freedom of the galaxy." As the unlikely allies prepared for their final assault, a sense of destiny hung in the air. The Komar had sown the seeds of their own reckoning, and now the harvest had come. The raid on the Komar Command Center was swift and brutal. Ethan and Raxia led their strike team through the facility's defenses like a scythe through wheat, leaving disabled turrets and unconscious guards in their wake. As they breached the central control room, Ethan's eyes locked onto the main computer terminal. "Cover me," he ordered, sliding into the seat and plugging in a data drive. His fingers flew across the alien interface, cracking encryptions and downloading vital intelligence. Raxia stood guard, her makeshift energy weapon humming with power. "Hurry, Ethan! Their reinforcements will be here soon!" The terminal chimed, and Ethan's eyes widened as he scanned the decrypted data. "Got it! And holy shit! Raxia, look at this!" On the screen, schematics for a massive research facility flickered to life. But it was the list of test subjects that made Ethan's blood run cold. Hundreds of human names scrolled by, including one that stood out, Dr. Lena Novak. "We need to get to that facility," Ethan said, his voice tight with urgency. "They're experimenting on our people." As they escaped the command center, alarms blaring behind them, Ethan relayed the intel to their makeshift base. Within hours, a rescue plan was hatched. The research facility loomed before them, a fortress of gleaming metal nestled in a desolate valley. Ethan led a small team through a maintenance tunnel, guided by stolen schematics. They emerged in a sterile corridor, the air heavy with the scent of antiseptic and fear. "Cell Block B," Ethan whispered, checking a holomap. "That's where they're keeping the human prisoners." They moved silently through the facility, disabling security systems and avoiding patrols. When they reached the cell block, Ethan's heart raced as he saw the rows of containment pods, each holding a human in suspended animation. He found Dr. Novak's pod and activated the release sequence. As the glass slid open, her eyes fluttered open, confusion giving way to recognition. You're human," she gasped, her voice hoarse from disuse. "We're getting you out of here," Ethan said, helping her to her feet. "All of you." As they began freeing the other prisoners, a piercing alarm shattered the silence. Komar security forces poured into the cell block, energy weapons blazing. Ethan shoved Dr. Novak behind cover, returning fire with his pulse rifle. "Go! Get to the extraction point!" He provided covering fire as his team escorted the prisoners out. But as he turned to follow, a bolt of searing energy caught him in the side. He stumbled, pain lancing through his body. Dr. Novak was suddenly there, supporting him. "I've got you," she said, her eyes fierce with persistence. "You saved us. Now it's my turn." They limped through the facility, Dr. Novak improvising a crude medical patch from scavenged supplies. Her quick thinking kept Ethan conscious and moving as they finally reached the waiting transport. As the ship lifted off, explosions rocking the facility behind them, Ethan fought to stay awake. He looked at Dr. Novak, her face illuminated by the glow of the ship's engines. "Thank you," he managed to say before darkness claimed him. When Ethan regained consciousness, he found himself in the Resistance's makeshift medical bay. Dr. Novak sat beside him, poring over a data pad filled with Komar technical schematics. "Welcome back," she said, a tired smile on her face. "You've been out for 3 days. That was some rescue." Ethan tried to sit up, wincing at the pain in his side. "The other prisoners?" "Safe," Dr. Novak assured him. "And eager to help. You've given us all a second chance, Ethan. And I think I might have found a way to turn the tables on the Komar." She showed him the data pad, explaining her theories on exploiting weaknesses in Komar technology. As Ethan listened, hope began to kindle in his chest. With Dr. Novak's knowledge and the growing strength of the Resistance, they might have a real chance at victory. Outside the medical bay, the sounds of construction and training echoed through the base. The Resistance was growing, adapting, becoming stronger. And as Ethan looked at the persistence in Dr. Novak's eyes, he knew that the real fight was just beginning. The rebel base thrummed with activity as Ethan, Dr. Novak, and Raxia huddled over a holographic display of the galaxy. Pinpoints of light marked their targets across multiple star systems. "It's time," Ethan said, his voice steady. "Transmit the go codes." Dr. Novak's fingers danced across the control panel. "Signals away. All teams are green." Across the stars, the carefully orchestrated plan unfolded. On Torrid 4, Raxia led her Zephyrian warriors through the shadows of massive manufacturing complexes. A Komar technician named Drix met them at a side entrance, inputting access codes with trembling hands. "The main reactor is 3 levels down," Drix whispered. "Disable it and the entire weapons production line goes dark." Raxia nodded, her eyes gleaming in the dim light. "For freedom," she said, then vanished into the facility with her team. Meanwhile, in the swirling gases of the Exora Nebula, Ethan stood on the bridge of the rebel flagship. A motley fleet of retrofitted human vessels surrounded him, their hulls gleaming with Dr. Novak's technological enhancements. "All ships execute attack pattern Delta," Ethan commanded. "Hit hard, hit fast, and don't let them pin you down." The rebel fleet surged forward, weaving through the nebula's vibrant clouds. Komar shipyards loomed ahead, their defenses caught off guard by the sudden assault. Ethan's vessels struck with surgical precision, Dr. Novak's upgrades allowing them to dance between energy beams and outmaneuver the larger Komar ships. On the planet Garaxis Prime, rebel leader Yalir raised a makeshift banner over the captured Capitol building. The streets echoed with the cheers of newly liberated citizens and the sounds of fleeing Komar troops. "The tide has turned," Yalir shouted to the crowd. "No longer will we bow to oppressors." In the Galactic Council chambers, Ambassador Laros and Kira presented their evidence. Holograms flickered to life, showing Komar atrocities on dozens of worlds. Several council members recoiled in horror. "We cannot stand idle while such crimes are committed," Laros declared. "I move for an immediate withdrawal of support for the Komar regime." As the council erupted into heated debate, a message crackled through on all frequencies. Ethan's face appeared on screens across the galaxy, his eyes alight with conviction. "People of the galaxy, hear me," he began. "For too long, the Komar have ruled through fear and oppression. But today we stand united against tyranny. Human, Zephyrian, Komar, and all species who yearn for freedom, join us. Together, we can forge a future of cooperation and shared prosperity." The signal cut out, leaving a stunned silence in its wake. Then, one by one, reports began flooding in of uprisings on Komar-controlled worlds. On Zephyrus Prime, Commander Zorn stared in disbelief at tactical displays showing rebel victories across multiple sectors. Before he could rally his forces, the door to his command center burst open. A group of Komar officers, led by his own second-in-command, stormed in. "Commander Zorn, you are relieved of duty," the second-in-command declared. "We must negotiate with the rebels before all is lost." As Zorn was led away in restraints, the Komar leadership fell into chaos. Moderates clashed with hardliners, each trying to seize control of the crumbling empire. Back on the rebel flagship, Ethan received the news of their victories with grim satisfaction. Dr. Novak stood beside him, her face illuminated by the glow of status reports. "We've done it," she said, a note of awe in her voice. "The Komar regime is fracturing." Ethan nodded, his expression serious. "This is just the beginning. We need to consolidate our gains and prepare for whatever comes next." As if on cue, a transmission cut through the bridge's chatter. A Komar face appeared on the main view screen, bearing the insignia of their new moderate faction. "Commander Jones," the Komar said, his voice carefully neutral, "we wish to discuss terms." Ethan exchanged glances with Dr. Novak and Raxia, who had just returned from her successful mission. The next moves in this galactic chess game would be crucial. "Very well," Ethan replied, squaring his shoulders. "Let's talk." "Very well," Ethan replied, squaring his shoulders. "Let's talk." The Komar face on the screen belonged to Governor Velas, leader of the moderate faction. His eyes darted nervously as he spoke. "Commander Jones, we propose a truce and shared power in a reformed galactic council. This bloodshed has gone on long enough." Ethan's teeth clenched. He glanced at Dr. Novak, who gave a subtle shake of her head. "Governor Velas, your words sound promising, but we need more than talk. Prove your sincerity with action. Release all political prisoners and withdraw your forces from occupied worlds." Velas hesitated, his mandibles clicking. "That's a significant demand. We'll need time to—" A proximity alarm blared, cutting off the transmission. Raxia's fingers flew across the tactical display. "Multiple Komar warships dropping out of hyperspace. It's Admiral Caraxes' fleet." The view screen erupted with fire as energy beams lanced through space. Ethan barked orders, and the rebel fleet scattered, barely avoiding the first salvo. "All ships, evasive maneuvers, return fire." The bridge rocked as a glancing hit struck their shields. Through the chaos, Ethan saw entire sections of their fleet disintegrate under Caraxes' onslaught. "We're outgunned," Dr. Novak shouted over the alarms. "We need to retreat." Ethan gritted his teeth. "No, we make our stand here. Raxia, get me a secure channel to Zephyrus Prime." The communication came through, revealing a scene of devastation. Smoke billowed from burning buildings as Komar dropships descended through the atmosphere. Yalir's face appeared, streaked with grime and blood. "Ethan, Caraxes is hitting us hard. We can't hold out much longer." "Help is coming," Ethan assured him, even as another explosion rocked the ship. "Just hang on." He turned to Dr. Novak. "You said you found weaknesses in their systems. Can you exploit them?" Her eyes widened. "Yes, but I'll need direct access to their network. It's too risky to—" "Do it," Ethan commanded. "Whatever it takes." As Dr. Novak worked feverishly at her console, Ethan and Raxia coordinated the desperate defense of Zephyrus Prime. The rebel fleet was taking heavy losses, but they refused to yield. Suddenly, the Komar ships faltered, their weapons powered down, shields flickering and failing. "I'm in," Dr. Novak exclaimed. "Their defenses are down, but not for long." Ethan seized the moment. "All ships, concentrate fire on Caraxes' flagship. Yalir, now's your chance." The tide of battle shifted. Rebel reinforcements broke through the weakened Komar lines, turning the ground assault into a rout. On the bridge of his crippled vessel, Admiral Caraxes snarled in fury. "Initiate Protocol Omega," he growled to his second-in-command. "If we can't have this world, no one will." As Caraxes' ship retreated, an encrypted transmission reached Ethan's command center. Kira's face appeared, her expression grim. "Ethan, I've infiltrated their systems. Caraxes is planning to deploy a bioweapon. It'll wipe out all non-Komar life on Zephyrus Prime." The color drained from Ethan's face. He turned to Raxia, his voice steel. "Assemble a strike team. We're taking the fight to Caraxes." Within minutes, Raxia led a group of elite operatives towards the Komar flagship. Using the confusion of battle as cover, they breached the hull and fought their way to the bridge. Caraxes whirled as the doors exploded inward, raising his weapon. Raxia was faster. A burst of energy caught the Admiral in the chest, sending him crashing to the floor. "It's over, Caraxes," Raxia growled, her weapon trained on the fallen Komar. A bitter laugh escaped Caraxes' lips. He raised a small device, his finger hovering over a glowing button. You're too late. The bioweapon is already... Raxia's shot vaporized the device, but the damage was done. Warning klaxons blared throughout the ship. Bioweapon launch sequence initiated, an emotionless voice announced. Deployment in T-minus 10 minutes. Raxia grabbed Caraxus, hauling him to his feet. How do we stop it? The Admiral's eyes gleamed with malice. You can't. Zephyrus Prime will burn, and the rebellion with it. Back on the Rebel flagship, Dr. Novak's fingers flew across her console. I'm trying to access the bioweapon systems, but the encryption is like nothing I've seen before. Ethan paced, his mind racing. Keep trying. We're out of options. The minutes ticked by, each second bringing them closer to catastrophe. Just as despair began to set in, a fleet of ships dropped out of hyperspace. This is Governor Valus, a familiar voice crackled over the comm. We're here to honor our pledge for peace. The moderate Komar ships engaged the remnants of Carax's loyalist forces, buying precious time. Dr. Novak redoubled her efforts, sweat beading on her forehead. Come on, she muttered. Just one more firewall. With seconds to spare, Dr. Novak let out a triumphant cry. I've got it! Bioweapon disarmed! A collective sigh of relief swept through the rebel fleet. On the surface of Zephyrus Prime, cheers erupted as news of the victory spread. In the aftermath, Ethan found himself face-to-face with Governor Valus. The Komar leader extended a hand in a gesture of peace. Commander Jones, I believe we have much to discuss regarding the future of our galaxy. Ethan hesitated for a moment, then clasped Valus's hand. The real work of building a lasting peace was just beginning. 20 years after the fall of the Komar regime, Ethan Jones stood before a holographic map of the galaxy, his weathered face illuminated by the soft blue glow. The room bustled with activity as Alliance officers rushed to coordinate responses to the latest wave of attacks. Sir, we've lost contact with Outpost Epsilon 9, a young lieutenant reported, her voice tight with tension. Ethan's eyes sharp. That's the third installation this week. The Vajjan are escalating their attacks. He turned to face Raxia, who had just entered the command center. Time had etched lines around her eyes, but her gaze was as fierce as ever. What's the situation on Novus Prime? Ethan asked. Raxia's mandibles clicked in frustration. The spaceport is still burning. Rescue teams are working around the clock, but casualties are high. A priority transmission cut through the chatter. Governor Valus appeared on the main screen, his usually composed demeanor shaken. Commander Jones, the Galactic Council is convening an emergency session. We need you here immediately. Ethan nodded grimly. I'm on my way. As he strode through the corridors of Alliance headquarters, the gravity of the situation deeply affected on his shoulders. The Vosjan supremacy had emerged from the shadows, striking with a ferocity that caught even the most prepared worlds off guard. In the council chambers, representatives from a dozen species argued heatedly. Ethan took his place beside Admiral Kira, noting the dark circles under her eyes. Order, Governor Valus called out, silencing the room. We face a threat unlike any since the fall of the old regime. Commander Jones, what's your assessment? Ethan stepped forward, his voice steady. The Vosjan are not mere terrorists. They're a highly organized military force with advanced technology and inside knowledge of our defenses. We need to form a specialized task force to counter this threat. As murmurs of agreement spread through the chamber, a young Zephyrian analyst caught Ethan's eye. Her scales shimmered with an iridescent sheen as she raised her hand. Commander, if I may, she said, her voice clear and confident. I've been analyzing the Vosjan attack patterns. There's a logic to their seemingly random strikes. I believe I can predict their next move. Ethan studied her for a moment. What's your name, analyst? Phyla, sir. Tactical specialist, 3rd class. Very well, Phyla. You have my attention. Let's hear your theory. As Phyla laid out her analysis, Ethan felt a familiar spark of hope. Perhaps with minds like hers, they could turn the tide against the Vosjan threat. Little did he know that within hours, alarms would blare throughout the Alliance as the Vosjan launched their most devastating attack yet. The battle for the future of the galaxy was about to begin in earnest. The Vozen assault on Alliance headquarters shook the very foundations of the newly formed galactic peace. Alarms blared as Ethan sprinted through smoke-filled corridors, dodging falling debris. He burst into the command center to find chaos. Tactical displays flickered with incoming enemy signatures. "Status report," he barked. Admiral Kira's fingers danced across the holographic controls. "Multiple Vozen battle groups dropping out of hyperspace. They've breached our outer defenses." A thunderous explosion rocked the building. Phala stumbled, but caught herself on a nearby console. "Sir, I've analyzed their attack pattern. They're concentrating fire on our shield generators." Ethan's mind raced. "Clever. Raxia, coordinate our fighter squadrons. We need to buy time for evacuations." As the battle raged, Alliance forces mounted a desperate defense. For days, the conflict raged across multiple star systems. Ethan's strategic brilliance and the valor of countless beings stemmed the Vozen tide, but at a terrible cost. In the aftermath, as the Alliance licked its wounds, an uneasy quiet settled over known space. Ethan stood before the Galactic Council, his face grim. "The Vozen threat has been neutralized," he reported, "but our intelligence suggests they were just the first wave. We must prepare for—" A piercing alarm cut him off. The chamber's holographic display flickered, replaced by an alien visage. Serpentine features framed eyes that glowed with cold intelligence. "Greetings, lesser beings," the figure hissed. "I am Emperor Zahir of the Idari dynasty. Your pitiful alliance ends today." The transmission cut out. Before anyone could react, reports flooded in of massive fleets materializing throughout Alliance space. The Idari invasion had begun. Months of brutal conflict followed. Ethan found himself thrust into the role of Alliance strategist, coordinating defenses against an enemy that seemed to appear and vanish at will. The Idari's advanced cloaking technology made conventional tactics useless. In a secure war room, Ethan pored over battle reports with his inner circle. Raxia, her armor scorched from recent combat, pointed to a star chart. "Their supply lines must be stretched thin," she growled. "If we could locate their command center—" Phala, the brilliant young analyst, spoke up. "Sir, I've been correlating data on Idari ship movements. There's a pattern. All signs point to the Krylos Nebula." Ethan's eyes narrowed. The nebula's radiation would mask any base. It's perfect. He straightened, decision made. We strike at the heart, assemble a team. We're going after Zahir himself. Days later, a stealth ship carrying Ethan, Raxia, Phala, Kira, and the rehabilitated Brachus plunged into the roiling gases of the Krylos Nebula. Sensor readings fluctuated wildly as they navigated the treacherous region. "Multiple contacts," Kira called out. "Idari patrols closing fast." Ethan gripped his chair. Evasive maneuvers, Raxia, ready weapons. A furious dogfight erupted. Raxia's marksmanship and Kira's piloting skills were pushed to their limits. They blasted through waves of Idari fighters, each near miss bringing them closer to their objective. Finally, they broke through. A massive space station loomed before them, its architecture alien and foreboding. "Zahir's command nexus," Ethan breathed. "Prepare for boarding. This ends now." As they docked and readied for battle, Ethan knew the real fight was just beginning. The fate of humanity and all alien species hung in the balance, and failure was not an option. Ethan's mind raced as he assessed their dire situation. The Idari command nexus loomed before them, a twisted monolith of alien architecture. He turned to his team, their faces set with dogged drive. "We go in fast and quiet," he said, voice low. "Our primary objective is to locate and neutralize Emperor Zahir." Raxia checked her weapon, mandibles clicking. "And if we encounter heavy resistance?" "We adapt," Ethan replied. "Phala, you're our eyes and ears. Monitor their communications. Find us a path to Zahir." The young analyst nodded, her scales shimmering in the dim light of the airlock. "I've already detected several encrypted channels. Given time, I can crack them." As the airlock cycled open, they moved swiftly into the alien corridors. The air hung heavy with an acrid scent, and strange bioluminescent growths pulsed along the walls. Kira took point, her enhanced senses alert for any sign of danger. They encountered their first patrol within minutes. 2 Idari guards, their serpentine bodies encased in sleek armor, rounded a corner. Raxia reacted instantly, her energy weapon discharging with a muffled hum. The guards crumpled without a sound. "Nicely done," Ethan murmured. "Phyla, any luck with those transmissions?" The analyst's eyes were distant, interfacing with her neural implant. "I'm in. Zahir's location, it's changing. He's on the move." A klaxon suddenly blared, echoing through the station. Ethan cursed under his breath. "They've detected us. New plan, we fight our way to Zahir. Raxia, take point. Kira, watch our 6. The team surged forward, engaging Idari forces in a series of lightning-fast skirmishes. Bracchus proved his worth, his cybernetic enhancements allowing him to hack into the station's systems and seal off entire sections, buying them precious time. As they battled deeper into the command nexus, Phyla's voice cut through the chaos. "Commander, I've pinpointed Zahir. He's heading for a hangar bay on level 6. Ethan's heart pounded. "He's trying to escape. We can't let that happen. Bracchus, find us a shortcut." The former Komar trader nodded, his cybernetic eye glowing as he interfaced with the station's schematics. "There's a maintenance shaft 2 corridors over. It'll take us straight to level 6. They fought their way to the access point, Raxia and Kira providing covering fire as Bracchus wrenched open the hatch. One by one, they dropped into the cramped shaft, the sounds of pursuit growing distant above them. As they emerged on level 6, the hangar bay doors loomed before them. Ethan could hear the whine of engines powering up beyond. "Breach charges," he ordered. "We blow the doors and go in hot." The explosion rocked the corridor, and they surged through the smoke. Emperor Zahir stood at the entrance to his personal shuttle, flanked by elite guards. His serpentine features twisted in a snarl of rage. "You dare!" he hissed, raising a weapon of impossible complexity. Time seemed to slow as energy beams crisscrossed the hangar. Ethan dove for cover, returning fire. Raxia engaged the guards in close combat, her skills a blur of lethal precision. Phyla's tactical insights guided their movements, while Kira and Bracchus provided suppressing fire. Zahir retreated into his shuttle, the engines roaring to life. Ethan knew they couldn't let him escape. The fate of the Alliance hung in the balance. "Bracchus!" he shouted over the din. "Can you override their systems?" The cyborg's hands flew over a nearby console. "Working on it, but their encryption is unlike anything I've seen." Phyla suddenly gasped. "Sir, I've detected a massive energy buildup. The station's powering weapons." Ethan's blood ran cold. They were out of time. Time. Ethan's mind raced, searching for a solution as the station trembled beneath their feet. "Bracchus, forget the shuttle. Can you shut down the station's weapons?" The cyborg's fingers flew across the alien interface. "Negative, Commander. Their systems are too advanced." Zahir's laughter echoed from the shuttle's speakers. "Fools! You've merely hastened your doom. Witness the true power of the Idari." The hangar bay doors began to open, revealing the swirling nebula beyond. Ethan felt the pull of decompression and grabbed onto a nearby strut. "Brace yourselves," he shouted. As the team struggled to maintain their footing, a blinding flash erupted from the nebula. The station shuddered violently, and alarms blared throughout the complex. Phyla's eyes widened in horror. "Sir, I'm detecting a massive gravitational anomaly. The nebula, it's collapsing." Zahir's shuttle lifted off, speeding towards the open bay doors. Ethan knew they had seconds to act. "Kira, can you pilot that Idari fighter?" He gestured to a sleek craft docked nearby. The Admiral nodded grimly. "I can fly anything." "Then let's move! Everyone aboard now!" They scrambled into the alien vessel as the hangar bay began to buckle around them. Kira's hands danced over the unfamiliar controls, and the fighter lurched to life. They shot out of the disintegrating station, pursuing Zahir's shuttle through a maelstrom of cosmic energy. The nebula was imploding, creating a vortex of unimaginable power. "He's heading for the event horizon," Phyla called out, monitoring the sensor readouts. Ethan leaned forward, his eyes locked on their prey. "Stay with him, Kira. Whatever happens, we can't let him escape." The fighter strained against the pull of the collapsing nebula. Zahir's shuttle flickered and distorted as it neared the vortex's edge. "Sir," Raxia's voice was tense, "if we follow him in, there's no guarantee we'll survive." Ethan's teeth clenched. "We don't have a choice. The future of the cosmos depends on stopping Zahir, no matter the consequences." With a nod from Kira, they plunged into the swirling chaos after the Idari Emperor. Reality itself seemed to warp around them as they were pulled deeper into the vortex. In a blinding flash, both vessels vanished into the heart of the anomaly. The Krylos Nebula collapsed in on itself, leaving behind an eerie stillness in the void of space. Months passed. The Alliance mourned the loss of its greatest heroes, even as they struggled to rebuild in the wake of the Idari invasion. But in the depths of uncharted space, far beyond the bounds of known civilization, a battered Idari fighter drifted out of a spatial rift. Inside, Ethan Jones slowly regained consciousness. His body ached and his mind struggled to make sense of their surroundings. As his vision cleared, he saw the rest of his team stirring around him. "Status report," he croaked, his throat dry. Phyla, her scales dulled but eyes alert, scanned their systems. "We're alive, sir, but I don't recognize any of these star patterns. We're completely off the charts." Ethan pulled himself to his feet, staring out at the alien vista before them. Strange, geometric structures floated in the distance, pulsing with otherworldly energy. "Where are we?" Raxia wondered aloud, her mandibles clicking in agitation. Before anyone could respond, a massive holographic projection materialized before their ship. An entity of pure light and energy addressed them in a voice that seemed to bypass their ears and speak directly to their minds. "Welcome, children of the younger races. We are the Zin. Your arrival has been long foretold." Ethan exchanged bewildered glances with his team. Whatever trials they had faced before paled in comparison to what lay ahead. The true test of humanity's place in the cosmos was about to begin. The Zin's words echoed in Ethan's mind as reality warped around them once more. In a blinding flash, the team found themselves back in Alliance space, their battered Idari fighter materializing above a familiar planet. "We're home!" Kira's voice was thick with disbelief. Before anyone could respond, their comms crackled to life. Admiral Zoran's face appeared on the monitor, his expression a mix of relief and urgency. "Commander Jones, thank the stars you're alive. We need you planetside immediately." As they descended through the atmosphere, Ethan felt a creeping unease. The cityscape below bore scars of recent conflict, smoke still rising from several districts. They touched down at Alliance headquarters, greeted by a squad of grim-faced soldiers. Zoran strode forward, his uniform disheveled. "Commander, I wish I could give you time to recover, but we're facing a crisis. While you were gone, things deteriorated." Ethan's team exchanged worried glances as Zoran led them to a secure briefing room. The Admiral's hands shook slightly as he called up a holographic display. "Crixton's loyalists," Zoran began, his voice tight. "They've obtained plans for a bioweapon capable of wiping out all non-human life in the galaxy." Raxia hissed, her mandibles clicking in agitation. "Impossible. Our security protocols—" "We're compromised," Zoran finished. "We have traitors in our midst." Phyla stepped forward, her scales dulled with fatigue. "Sir, if I may, our journey through the anomaly exposed us to intense cosmic radiation. Commander Jones needs immediate medical attention." Ethan opened his mouth to protest, but a wave of dizziness swept over him. The room seemed to tilt and warp, voices becoming distant echoes. He blinked and suddenly found himself in a sterile medical bay, the hum of equipment filling his ears. Phyla's concerned face swam into view. "How long?" Ethan croaked. 3 days, she replied softly. "Your mind, it's struggling to process what happened in the anomaly." Ethan tried to sit up, but his limbs felt leaden. "The bioweapon, we have to—" "Rest," Phyla insisted. "We're working on it, but sir, there's more." She activated a nearby screen, showing footage of violent clashes on an alien world. Ethan recognized the architecture of the Zephyrian capital. The Purifiers, Phyla explained. They're exploiting the chaos, pushing for Zephyrian isolation. Raxia's people are on the brink of civil war. Ethan's mind raced, fragments of strategy forming and dissolving like smoke. He pushed himself upright, ignoring the pain lancing through his body. "We need to move," he growled. "Gather the team. We'll hit the supremacist strongholds, retrieve the bioweapon plans. Then, Zephyria." Phyla's expression was pained. "Sir, you're in no condition." "It wasn't a request," Ethan snapped, his vision blurring momentarily. "The alliance is fracturing. If we don't act now, everything we've fought for will be lost." Hours later, Ethan stood unsteadily in the cockpit of a stealth dropship, his team arrayed around him. Each face bore the weight of their desperate mission. As they streaked towards the first target, Ethan's mind drifted. For a moment he saw not the ship's interior, but a vast cosmic lattice, pulsing with unknowable energies. He shook his head, forcing himself back to reality. 30 seconds to insertion, Kira announced, her voice cutting through the haze. Ethan gripped his weapon, pushing aside the doubts and the lingering visions. Whatever the cost, they would save the Alliance. They had to. The dropship's bay doors hissed open, revealing the night sky of a distant world. Without hesitation, Ethan leapt into the void, his team close behind. As they plummeted towards their target, he could only hope his fractured mind would hold together long enough to see them through.
You have reached the end of the story. If you enjoyed this story and want to support us, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel, and for every comment that says 88, I will heart every single one of them. Thank you for your time.